Hey YouTube, Ayrton here from Azow's Mac, and I have everything you need to know about the Chromecast. So first off, one of the most important things that everyone needs to know about their Chromecast is it must be powered. Yes, it plugs into the HDMI, but you also have to plug it in to a USB cord. You can plug it into a USB on your TV, or it also comes with an included power brick that you can plug into your wall. Another big question is, how is the Chromecast different from things like the Apple TV and also the Google TV? And the main difference is the Apple TV and Google TV both have their own interfaces. But with the Chromecast, you can control it using things like your iPad or your iPhone or any Android device. You can even stream music or local content from Android apps. You can't, however, stream local content from iPads or iPhones quite yet. And an example of that is streaming your own music library from your iPhone. If you're running something like Plex, then you can stream your own content, but it's from a remote server. The Chromecast is just being plugged in by HDMI, so it really has no differentiation between what TV you're plugging it into. The only differentiation it has is what Wi-Fi network you're connected to. So if you do change, say you're going on a trip and you go into a hotel, you will be prompted to set up a new Wi-Fi network. And if that Wi-Fi network doesn't have the AP isolation turned off, then you won't be able to use the Chromecast on that specific network. But on any home network, you can move the Chromecast into any room and it wouldn't matter. Or even if you're at a friend's house, most likely the Chromecast would work, assuming you set it up on their network. Factory resetting the Google Chromecast is super easy. There's a button on the back, and all you have to do is hold it down for about 10 seconds and it's factory reset. You can really easily rename your Google Chromecast by just going through the installation process again. For those of you who haven't installed the Google Chromecast software before, you just go to Google's website, install the software, run it with the Chromecast plugged in and turned on, and you set it up wirelessly. Something else to consider is because the HDMI port on the Google Chromecast is just an HDMI port, it doesn't necessarily only have to be plugged into a TV. It can also be plugged into something like an HD receiver. I personally plugged my Chromecast into the back of my 5.1 receiver, and my receiver is then plugged into my TV along with 6 speakers, 5 surround channels, and then also the 0.1, which is my subwoofer. And this allowed me to get the full 5.1 surround sound out of all the content that's streaming. Now, I've already touched upon this a little bit, but one of the most important things to keep in mind is that the Chromecast does not stream local media, or more specifically, it doesn't stream it off your device. So say I take my iPad and I'm watching a YouTube video. When I send it to the Chromecast isn't necessarily communicating with my iPad. It's my iPad sending to the Chromecast a link, like a URL, and then it's going and fetching the data itself. Now, this is good and bad. It's going to take a second to buffer, but when it does start buffering, you're going to get better quality. It's not using the iPad to actually supply it, it's using your network. So assuming the network in your house is fast or decent, which it probably is since we're watching videos on our iPads already, you're going to get a good stream. Taking this into account, this also means that any HD media you're streaming is going to be HD when you get it onto your Chromecast. Another important thing to remember is that the Chromecast does not recognize the 5 GHz band on a dual band router. So I have a dual band router and it has a 2.4 GHz band and a 5 GHz band. And what I had to do is I had to separate the bands and create a name for the 2.4 GHz network and a name for the 5 GHz network. And once I did that, it was super simple to connect the Chromecast, but before I did that, I couldn't get it to connect because it was confusing the two bands together. Now, taking that into account, since both the 2.4 GHz and the 5 GHz bands are on the same network, it doesn't matter if I'm connected on my iPad to the 5 GHz and my Chromecast to the 2.4, I can still send content to the Chromecast because they are on the same network. Last but certainly not least is how do I actually connect my devices together? Because when you install your Chromecast in your house, you're not automatically going to get the Chromecast button or the cast button on your devices. All you have to do is go to the App Store, if you're Android or Apple, it doesn't matter, and download the Chromecast app. Once you download the app, you open it up, and it recognizes your Chromecast on your network. So as you can see, this is going through the setup because I'm not currently connected to Wi-Fi. And once you go through the setup, it will enable apps like YouTube and apps like Plex to recognize the Chromecast on your network and send content to it. It's the exact same thing on your computer. If you're running the Chrome browser, which is so far the only thing that does support it, or if you're just on YouTube, you can install the Chrome extension to let you share your desktop by just going to the Chrome store.